So we're in the 4th chapter, and last week we finished off with, I think, the 34th stanza. We picked up at the 35th stanza, 33rd stanza. We left off the 32nd, I think. Here in the 4th chapter, Sri Krishna starts off with a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful poetical praise of jnana, knowledge. It was very beautiful. For the next few stanzas we'll experience it. What's the importance of knowledge? Because, reduced to its simplest component, we're only suffering from lack of it. We're suffering from ignorance. All suffering is because of ignorance. On any scale you like, in any situation you like, just take normal communication, people get very upset because there's miscommunication. And the older you get, the hearing goes a little bit. So some hearing has gone here, a tooth has gone for the reception committee on the other side, and an eyesight has gone on the reception committee. So by the time I get there, everything will be nicely assembled, I'm sure. But it doesn't take much, and it can be quite funny, isn't it? Somebody mistakes a word or an understanding, and sometimes it can create a huge war about it. See? So I read something funny, a headline, a mock-up headline. The First World War was caused because of an assassination. See? So the headline went, is an assassination of a duke. So a duke still alive, World War, a mistake. That could be a calamity. So it's a beautiful, beautiful praise of knowledge coming, because knowledge is everything. So it goes, Shreyan Travya Maya Yajñat Yana Yajña Parantapa Sarvam Karma Kilam Parta Jnane Parisamapyati. So, Shreyan means superior. Nothing is superior. What is superior? Knowledge, sacrifice, because in the preceding stanza we were talking about yajna, sacrifice. Knowledge sacrifice is superior to wealth sacrifice. Where do you find wealth sacrifice? See, in religion we find all this ritualism involving a lot of wealth. So we find that people spend a lot of money. There's a great story, Krishna's story, you recognize it. Around this time of the year, Durga Puja, there was a man, a very wealthy man. He gave a big, big puja. Every year he was famous. People came from far and wide to experience his puja. And many, many priests, thousands of people coming, and the food second to none. And he just sponsored the whole lot. After some years he never did it, as he grew older. In his old age, so somebody asked him, why do you no longer give this elaborate puja? We used to enjoy it. He says, well, you see, now these days my teeth are gone, so I can't enjoy the food.
To be precise, he says, because they sacrifice a goat during Durga Puja, so he can't munch into
he can't munch into it, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I didn't want to go into the goat thing, because last week we were discussing at depth about animal sacrifice and so on and so forth. So I avoided that section. But that's the idea. So, whatever we do, what is the motive with which you do it? On the outside you can look very noble, you can do a lot of religious things, but on the inside, what is on the inside? How do you tell what is a spiritual person? Not from the outside. The outside, totally nothing. Just study the person at close quarters and see what happens. But at close quarters, how will he? And that whole issue is raised in chapter 2. How does a man walk? How does he speak? All of that is brought up. So knowledge sacrifice is superior. And the mind must be kept fresh and pure as a flower. It's better than heaps of wealthy rituals and so on. So all action comes. All action, all karma in its entirety, Upartha, culminates in knowledge. Whatever action you do culminates in knowledge. How so? Does bad action also culminate in knowledge? Yes, we learn a lesson from it. Bad action will result in pain, a painful situation. We need to learn from it. Some people don't. So the camel, we're told, chews thorns and its mouth bleeds, but it still chews thorns. We just repeat, like a hamster on a wheel, going, going, going. You can imagine the hamster bringing up a philosophical question: how can I get off this round? How can I get off this running? I seem to be running all my life, no rest. How can I get off it? Well, just do it. Just jump off. That's all you require. But the difficulty is we think, I'm unable to do it. I can't do it. So until we learn that lesson, that technique, how to do it. Right now, this door, we know about this door. That gives us the freedom to go in and out. Supposing we don't know about it, like an animal trapped. You have these traps, animal gets caught. It entered, but doesn't know how to leave in the same way. In the same way, we can imagine that we are the imprisoned splendor. It's a title of a book. Reynold Johnson, a big scientist, wrote a book, The Imprisoned Splendor. Are we really imprisoned? No, of course. That's called ignorance. Ignorance is an assumption. We are imprisoned. Knowledge, we are free. We also are free. We don't have to attain it or achieve it. It's our own nature. So knowledge, sacrifice, is superior to wealth sacrifice. All action, all karma, whatever it is a learning process. We get more knowledge from it. Then it goes on then, don't dwell on that too much. So knowledge is supreme is the next thing. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam janinas tattvadarshinaha. Tattva is a very important technical term. It means a principle. In this case, principle of truth. Tattvadarshina, those who have realized the truth. So the question comes, how? How will we get this knowledge, this supreme knowledge? A number of methods are elucidated. So we find here, earnestness must be there, humility must be there, and if we have these two things, earnestness and humility, then God supplies all resources for us, including competent teacher. Comes into our area. Unasked, it comes. Just the thought about it enables it to come. In any field, thought is so powerful that it brings in whatever resources we require. Thought has a converting, transforming capacity to it. So thought is a transformer. When should we think in order to transform? You don't have to worry about that. Every second is an opportunity for it. If we don't catch it, train it, direct it, waste it, it still has its repercussion as a condensation in aspects of the world outside us. If we know that, we'll be very careful what we think. Thought is our kalpataru, our wish-fulfilling tree. So we have to be careful how we use it. It's God's character. God's grace comes to us as thought. How will we use it?
Do we use it productively by prayer?
Sorry?
Do we use it productively by prayer or study? Or
what do you mean by prayer?
I suppose request.
Request. The difficulty about a request is it's a double-edged sword. So every request is accompanied by, I don't have it. So if we look at the thought process, I want it, I don't have it, plus 1 minus 1, what comes? Nothing. I want it, means I don't have it. Then if you repeat it more than once, see in Zimbabwe we have a beautiful, I may have told you, beautiful story, true story. There was we did a course, the enneagram course, we do it in 2 sections. So the first section we did, then there's a 2-week gap for people to assimilate and experience it and watch how the mind goes. Second weekend, came back. How was your time away? Very fine, very fine. What's wrong with you? Oh well, I went, because there was a drought in that area, we went and attended a stadium. There was something like, easily 10,000 people there. I was very disgusted. Why? But they were praying for rain. But why were you disgusted? I couldn't believe it. Not one person brought an umbrella. Imagine. So if you are asking once should be enough, isn't it? If you ask repeatedly, it's repeated doubt. Once is enough. It's the same thing. I am a sinner, I am a sinner. Same thing. So you find the prayer goes along this, please rescue me, please rescue me. But then you ask the first time. So we have to balance it with faith. You ask once, that's enough. There was a man caught in a flood in Mozambique, next door to where I come from. There were very frequent floods. This is the opposite of the other story. The other story was about a drought. Now this is floods. So people find themselves caught on the roof of their house. The man was very religious. He sat on his roof and said, God will rescue me. I am a friend of God all my life. I have great faith. I prayed to Him. God will rescue me. The next thing is, a motorboat comes. Come on. He says, no, it's all right. I'm a religious man. I'm sitting here on the roof until God rescues me. Don't worry about it. He'll come. Anyway, the water comes up. He's sitting on the very, very edge of the very, very top of the roof. Eventually, a helicopter comes, lowers the ladder. He shouts, don't worry, God will rescue me. Off they go. Next thing he drowns, goes up to heaven, very indignant. Lord, I've been your devotee my whole life. I prayed for you to rescue me. You didn't do it. This is my child. What could I do? I sent you a boat and a helicopter. What more can I do?
You have to recognize it. You have to know.
That's it. You're not going to come and pluck you from the sky. You use the resources that you have. So, how do you do this? Seek that enlightenment, seek that help, seek that knowledge. How? By salutation or prostration, by questions and by service.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said the repeated prayers, will it not build strength? For example, let's say we are already weak mentally, okay, but we are seeking to, repeated prayers, it doesn't mean absence of faith. Does it not, sometimes can it not be gone to this? Because I do it, that's what I'm asking, okay. So it is to strengthen my mind and my desire, direct my desires to only to that prayers. And maybe, for example, my mind could get disturbed during the day. For example, I deal with money, okay. And sometimes I could a desire unknowingly enters my mind, what if I have a little more? So at that time, immediately I have to close my eyes and pray to the Lord. Lord, please take away this desire.
Yeah.
So, but I do it, whenever it happens, He makes me do it. So, is that wrong? It's not that I don't have faith in Him, but I don't want this thought to come into me again.
Yeah. Well, once should be enough. Most of us don't have that level of faith for it once to be enough. So is it wrong to repeat it? No. So ask for another thing. What is that? Give me more faith.
Okay.
If I have more faith, I only have to ask once. Turn's gone. Finished.
Okay.
You see, there are two starting positions. One position is a point, I am weak. This is a doctor's position. You go to a doctor will say, internally or imply, inherently you're weak. Inherently the body is defective. We have to make it correct. Now if a doctor doesn't have that position, nobody will come to him. You are making money. His prayer would be, may everybody be sick. If no one is sick, then how will I earn a living? The healthy person says, may they be doctors so I can be healthy. The Vedanta has this facility to be facile. In other words, very flexible. So you can draw out any tool you want. What is the highest tool you can use? Advaita is the highest conclusive tool. You take that, keep it in a corner, you don't have to use it all the time, but it's a multi-purpose tool. It will solve every problem. You'll learn how to handle every problem. We'll come to that now. So from a position of unity, you say, not I am weak, but I am strong. I am strength itself. I am the Atman. Water cannot wet me, fire cannot burn me. I'm indestructible, infinite. I am existence itself. I am knowledge itself. I am Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. I am all of that. Now from that position, beaming and asserting, that's an all-purpose cure-all. You stand from that position and beam, things look different. You don't have to stand from the victim weak point of view. I am this, please save me. Sometimes you can stand there, it's all right. But you can be flexible and say, let me stand in another position from time to time. You can stand there and say, since the Lord of the universe sits within me, and since all wealth is His, then this paper is mere paper. What is it? At my command, all wealth can be mine. That Lord who spins the galaxies, you don't think He can give you a little bit of pocket money? You think He can? He won't give you, in Jesus' language, He won't give you a stone. You ask for a piece of bread. What kind of bad human God is that? You ask me for a bread. I'm playing a practical joke. I give him a stone. He looks like bread. He chews and breaks all his teeth. And I have a chuckle in heaven. What kind of God is that? So, you won't do that. You ask for bread, He'll give you bread. So, you see in the Jewish scripture, you'll find that same thing. In the desert, you don't have to take it literally. Desert means that there's, in a lifeless place, most of us live in a desert-like condition. Then what happens? You guide people through, and people are thirsty, they want water. God tells me, here's a stick. You just have to rap on the rock. Just once is enough. He hits the rock, then doubts. 3 times he hits it. For that, he's not permitted to go into the land of milk and honey. Why? What was his crime? Once was enough. Why did you doubt? The doubt itself is the culmination of this chapter. I will deal with it more. But in the meantime, some helps are there. A competent teacher is necessary. A competent teacher in any field is necessary. If I want to learn anything, even at school or college, I have to learn from a competent teacher in that field. In this field of spirituality and discovery and knowledge, what should a competent teacher be? He should be Tattva Darshinaha, somebody who has realized that truth as a tattva, as a fact. That's what is necessary. So every field requires that, and earnestness supplies a teacher, but humility is required for any knowledge, even college knowledge. You go to learn chemistry and you say, I read a few books, I think I know it already, so I'm going to sit in your class. And because I was kept up late last night, I'll have a dose. No, that kind of arrogant attitude won't get you any knowledge in any sphere, in any field. So it is salutation, prostration. Make sure that humility is there. I know nothing, you know everything, so I sit here and give you that. Prostration is there. And then questions. What kind of questions? I get questions pretty much all day and night. Somebody asked me, oh, so what is God? By the time you answer, they've gone away. It's just a casual question. They're not really interested. So make sure your question is earnest. Make sure that you have a sensible question. So the question here is not just a question, it's pariprashnena, by a superior question. Not an inferior question, not a casual question. So the wise, the seers into the truth will instruct you in that knowledge. You take it nicely. Like a lamp being lit from another lamp. That's the idea. Lamp of knowledge being passed on. All knowledge is sacred. We search for the tattva of things. Is that tattva? We are searching for the param tattvam, the supreme principle, the highest principle that we are seeking. We require a high kind of teacher. constant questioning, not lazy questions. Then is there any other means we can use? Yes, next stanza tells it. There's a small thing that you can read out there from Sri Ramakrishna in connection with that stanza we just read. You want to read that out? Of what avail?
Of what avail are prayer and devotion to an aspirant who views his master as a mere human being? The disciple ought not to hold the master as a man. Before getting the vision of the deity, the novice sees the form of the guru as a preliminary. This form metamorphoses into the deity. The disciple thereby understands that God and Guru are one and the same. The master awakens the spiritual consciousness in him. More than that, he leads the initiated into Brahman itself. If the aspirant is earnest about spiritual enlightenment, the Lord sees to it that he comes in contact with an enlightened one. Seek, and the light is sent to you.
The valuable commentary. So often there's a criticism. There's just a man. Why do you elevate this person to a god status? Now there are many god men self-declared. You beware of those. Why? Because how will I declare it? It should be self-evident. When that self-evidence comes, what will you see? Will you not see God reflected there? See how Jesus says, you cannot hide your light under a bushel or a bed. If your light is there, light is there. It will shine for everyone to see. It will be self-evident. Sometimes a person can hide it also. So many people, you read Sri Ramakrishna, many people who came into the circle of Sri Ramakrishna never recognized him as anything but ordinary, nothing special. But when he chose to reveal, he could reveal. Same thing with Jesus. If they thought Jesus was special, why did they put him on the cross? He's just an ordinary man, we put him on a cross. If they really thought that he was part of the theological development of, here is God incarnate, they wouldn't do it. Anyway, we won't get into this, a controversial area, because what does man do? They now degrade themselves by saying, see what the Jews did to our God. It creates a, for thousands of years, creates a controversy, including the Second World War and all the repercussions of it, the great persecution of the Jews and even thereafter. But then what's the hallmark then of enlightenment? That's the next question. How will we recognize that? So we go on to the next one. Yat nyatanga napurna maham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutanye asheshena dakshasya atnyatumai. Knowing this, O Pandava, you won't again fall into confusion. You're looking for a way out of confusion. If you know this principle of knowledge being everything and superior to everything, being a kind of fire is the next one, then what will become of you? All confusion will go. For how long? Forever. By this you will see the whole of creation in yourself and in me. You'll know everything, including all the temporary thing about creation and what is the substratum of it. The whole of creation itself and me. This is a very, very important stanza. Thank you. There's a beautiful stanza from Katholische. Manase vedam aptavyam neha nanasti kincha mrityosa mrityam apnati yaha nameva pashyati. By the mind alone, this is obtained. There's no variety here. So whoever perceives anything like variety here goes from death to death. This is a very important stanza from Katholische. So what is the remedy for all difficulties in the world? Unity. The closer you get to unity, the less you have diversity. You go from diversity, you go from death to death. Only unity will create this infinity for you. Now, from the Second World War, we've seen it. Second World War in the last century, we have to say the last century, we find there was a lot of discrimination even after that war, and progressively we've seen great changes. So even I, in India, it's many years ago now, received some nice stones. I don't mean I collected gems, I mean people threw them at me. Why? Blecha.
Sorry?
Blecha. Blecha.
Okay, meaning.
Meaning?
Outcast?
Foreigner, dirty person.
Oh, okay, okay.
See?
Untouchable.
We don't know it these days, but 50 years ago it was there. in just south of me, geographically, in South Africa, the black person was considered very inferior. Everywhere the British went, the British were superior, everywhere else was inferior. Now the United Nations has knocked that away. So everyone now has human rights, is laboured, not only human rights, but children's rights also, gender rights, all of that is sweeping across the globe. It's a new era in that. So we're getting more toward unity, more human understanding, registering everybody as one species, human species, with the capacity to override any of the horizon of the senses, reading that animals have, and say, no, it's a very interesting way of looking at things. That great, many centuries ago, a man called Blaise Pascal, the great mathematician. So he registered that. You see, from the whole universe, if you take it and reduce it down to man, supposing you start there and come down to the earth, solar system, the earth, man, that's just like a dot, hardly even a dot. But then that dot has the capacity to understand all the rest, the whole expanse of where you started first, understanding that with his man brain, just with thought, capacity to think. You know what a fantastic creature man is. Even just a small subdot has a capacity to know the entire universe, and more, capacity to know his own self. So every person has that. That's the glory of humanity. Doesn't require any qualification of race, religion, creed, gender. The more you get to a unity, the more you get to this knowledge. So that's what he's saying, exactly what he's saying. And we've made tremendous strides in that area. So, Rajyosa Mrityam Apmati Yeha Nani will Pashiti. If you perceive anything like variety here, you go from death to death. So, that's fine. That.
And knowing that, then, or knowing this, is the tattva, is it?
Tattva.
The truth.
Yeah. Paratattva is the truth. Because the ultimate, that's why Advaita, non-dualism, is not just a theoretical fancy somewhere. Advaita, if Advaita teaches oneness, oneness is the whole unity behind everything. That oneness, that one without a second, reaching there will give you a very generous attitude in the world of multiplicity. In the world of multiplicity, seeing only oneness everywhere, who will be a mlecha, who will be a black, where will there be apartheid, where will there be hatred, where will there be Muslims declaring, will be suicide bombers and all this, but all of that will go. You just understand there's a unity there. Even at a human level, there's a unity called humanity. At an energy level, there's a unity called energy. Even at a material level, there's a unity called matter. And at a spiritual level, there's unity which we call Brahman. Even if you be the most sinful of all sinners, api chedasi papebhya sarvebhya papakritma sarvam jnana pravenaiva vrijinam samtarishyasi, thou shalt cross. You compare it now to a boat. So, even if you be the most sinful of all sinners, some people ask, yeah, I understand, see God and everything, but what about Adolf Hitler? Should we see God in him? Yeah, why not? Even if you are the most sinful of sinners, is there any chance for you? Yes, you can still catch the boat. See how many people during famine got on a boat. They went to Liverpool first, and then from there they went across. Or maybe they left from other places, I don't know, but Liverpool, and then they went across to New York. Okay, we catch the boat, even the most diminished of us, yes, hope for everybody. Yet shall you cross over all sin by the raft of knowledge. This idea of a boat crossing is very prominent, especially in Buddhism. That is why the Tathagata is the name of the Buddha, the one who takes you across by a boat. The Lord, take me across on your boat, please. Even though I'm a sinner, it's all right, you know it, but never mind. Your grace can rescue me. How does jnana do away with karma is explained in the next one. So, yatai dhamsi samito vinyet basmasat kurut arjuna. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful image. Yajnat nihi sarva karmani basmasat kurute tatha. As the blazing fire, beautiful image. We're now shifting the image from a boat to fire. A beautiful image. Fire is significant for every culture and represents the height of knowledge. But what will it do? Will it just shine there? No. It burns. A fire burns. And depending on the intensity of the fire, the more it burns. If it's an intense fire, it'll burn all your karma, all your effects, all your actions to nil. The very favorite question. You see, we still have to live out our karma. Do we still have to live out our karma? We have this prarabdha karma, we have this samhita karma, we have all these different kinds of karmas from the past, from the present actions, and something we shot. To put it like this. An arrow you take, you shoot. It's gone already. You can't do anything about it. But then, the arrow that you shoot now, you can do something about it. Isn't it? The arrow that's currently in your bow is just left. Nothing you can do about it. But the arrow you're about to shoot, you can do something about it. What's that called? It's called a second. There's a unit. You can put two books on a table together, but you can never put 2 seconds on a table together. It's sequential. The one, then the next, then the next, then the next. You take that 1 second, put something in. It's a blank check. It was never used before. Put something in. The God with his hands up, and he has a blank check, my child. Oh yes, the recession. Oh no, try again. Oh no, the temptation of money. Oh no, the next thing. Come on, put something useful in this time. Oh, I hate my neighbor's nose. All right, put something in. I wish I was luckier. Put something else in. Unlimited blank checks, second by second, given supply to us. What will you put in? Put something useful. You already put something damaging in, another check is provided. Never mind about that. Here's another. Why should we fill it in? Correct our own inner bank balance, which is in the red. Make it, put it in the black. Put something useful in. Change the world outside, and change the internal world also. As the blazing fire reduces fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge reduce all karma to ashes. That means all actions and effects. God. The 3 types of actions are there, mentioned. So you find the samchita, agami, and prarabdha. So things that are in the future, an effect that is to come in the future, an effect that is to come imminently, and one which can be avoided. So something you put in now can be avoided. So all those things can be all neutralized and burnt up. But like any fire, if it's a mild fire, only mild burning will take place. It has to be intensive, very intensive. Tivra Samvegaram Asana is a small sutra from Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Success is speedy for the extremely energetic. It's like curry. You can have mild, medium, or hot. So what will you have? See, if you have the hottest, if you have the most energetic, the better result in everything, isn't it? Take one or two things in life, put all your energy in, concentration, full focus of that. It operates like a laser beam and acts as a revealing factor for you. What is concentration? Concentration is steering your attention in such a way that you reduce the time of the effect. The time gets shortened. The more concentration, the shorter the time. It's up to you. But you have various options. There's no obligation. Entirely up to you. Free choice. So, sanchita, agamin, prarabdha, for the future, the far, the now, present, and so on and so forth, all of that can get burnt up. Then, we go on to the next one. You can see I've seen people getting injections. And some students will have to line up. A standard injection everybody has to get in a school, say. And I've seen even medical students, it's known that they take the needle and test it and put it in. A person stands there, it's fine. Next person. For some people, just seeing the needle is enough to make them faint and fall down. In this language, their fire was very little. The more fire you have, the more faith you have, the more strength you have, the more effect it has. We need to light that fire in every context we can think of. Right, you can go on. So, we talk of now. Truly, now here's a very, very important word. Pavitram is the word used. It means pure, purity. So, nahi jnanena sadrasham pavitram iha vidyate. Tat swayam yogasam siddha kalena tani vindhi. So the one more dimension then, as to the how, and what is that? Truly, there is no purifier, pavitram. There's nothing more pure in this world than like knowledge. He that is perfected in yoga realizes it in his own heart in due time. In his own heart. If you have less fire, you get more upset, more pain, more intolerance. If you get more fire, you get less pain. Did I say less pain? If the fire is less, you get more pain. If the fire is more, you get less pain. More tolerance. You won't faint, just at the sight of the needle. We go on to the next one. In answer to a question we might have, who will get this? Now we come on. Shraddha. Shraddhavan labhati jnanam tatpara samyatendriya. Jnanam labhva param shanti achirena digachti. The man of faith is the man with great, great fire. The devoted, the master of his senses obtains knowledge. It's fashionable today not to have any discipline. You're just free. There was a good question-answer session I was engaged in a few days ago with an American person. They said, no, we are a very free country. We believe in freedom of speech and freedom of this and freedom of that. I said, but you see, in order to shape your character, you require discipline. No. Why should you have discipline? That restricts our freedom. We like to be spontaneous. Everything must be spontaneous, according to your own personality and nature. Not everybody can be free. It's precisely to develop that spontaneity that you require discipline. You couldn't understand it. Then I gave an example. Cows are spontaneous, isn't it? Or who was it? Who said, oh, somebody else. He was telling me he lived with somebody but there were rats all over the place and nobody controlled them. They're like God's creatures, let them do what they like. But being untrained, they defecate everywhere, even on your food. You leave food out, they'll put droppings there. So is that the kind of, they're spontaneous, but does it get them anywhere? If you leave a child to be spontaneous, they'll urinate everywhere. If you leave a cow to be spontaneous, they'll urinate and defecate everywhere. You teach a child not to do it, to restrict that. Certain time, certain place, it's done. Without that, how will a human develop? Every human requires some discipline. Once you require the discipline, then you have a level of freedom to exercise. But a framework must be there. And unfortunately, in society, there's too much of that. Let's be spontaneous, no discipline. Let a child do what it likes. So the man of Shraddha, the devotee, the master of his senses, you have to be a master of your senses, obtains that knowledge. How will you attain this knowledge that we've been praising so highly? Here it is. You need faith. You need devotion. You need to master your senses. These are the three things that are required. Now, what does Shraddha mean? There's a beautiful story that you can read out there. Krishna says it.
When will I have the vision of God? Asked an ardent disciple of the Master. Instead of giving a direct answer, he took the novice to the seashore and held him immersed in water for a while. He was then asked how he felt. I thought I would die for want of air to breathe, came the answer. Such a quest of God would reveal him immediately, was the answer given by the Master.
That's it. How much is your thirst? And don't worry, how will we make our corrections? If our thirst is more, if our thirst for God is more, our thirst for other things will be less, without even attending to it. We won't have to say, let me make our desires less. We'll just say, make our desire for God more. When that happens, what becomes of everything else? It diminishes. If I say, let me appreciate culture and art more, then what will become of my love in childhood for plastic toys? It will be much less. So one replaces the other, that's the point. If I have longing, you see, this longing is the thing given. How intense is the fire? That's the point. Now it's difficult to just suddenly develop a longing. So if you want to have a prayer, you can say, please let my longing increase, let my faith increase. Do that. We have to be very observant about where the mind is going at any given second. At any given opportunity, you have to see, where is it wandering to? And how can I then bring it back? And mastery is giving freedom and then restraining, just like a dog. You take a dog for a walk. A dog's tendency is to resist being put on a lead if it's not trained properly. If you take it off the lead, it'll wander here, wander there. Now, if you allow it to do that, it'll sniff here, sniff there, but because it's loyal to you, even if you walk and ignore it, it'll come back to you. You make sure you can wander and then make sure it comes back. The important thing is it comes back. Give it freedom, there, right? You experience that. Now please come back. Please come back. Please come back. Until it knows automatically they're coming back. Now it's well trained. So that's the process. You won't change it overnight. It's not worth it if you change something overnight. If you find God today, you'll have a revolution against Him tomorrow. Take your time. Nothing radical.
So the mind comes back for...
Sorry?
Then the mind comes back for what? For prayer, for attending to...
The mind comes back to enjoy the very highest. So given the opportunity here now, supposing we say next week, of course it won't happen, we're all busy next week. Next week we'll go on a camping trip, a holiday. So what will we do? We'll go off to, let's say, the mountains of Mourne. But instead of seeing the mountains of mourn, I'll give you a better example of things I hear. About the youth here from Ireland, I gave it on Tuesday. I've heard people say, oh, once a year, here's how people solve our problems. We work intensively, become miserable for a whole year, except one small portion of the summer, we go away. I see, very nice. Where do you go to? We go to wherever, Spain or what have you. What do? You surely enjoy the beautiful scene, the scenery, the sunshine, all the new things to see, the blue sky, all of these things, the freedom, the fresh air. No. But what did you do? We drank. We sat in somewhere, in a corner somewhere, we drank. Did you not see the beautiful sunrise? No, in the Mediterranean? No. Why? Because we had a little headache here from the drinking. I see. So you see, given a choice, we're all given the choice, whether we drag the mind down or pull the mind up. And we can always elevate it, not just a little bit, but elevate it to the highest sublimity. And we can do it through philosophy. Philosophy tells us how to do it. And devotional imagery gives us images about it. Put God in His angel state instead. Elevate the mind to its highest thing. You say, next week we won't meet, we'll meditate at home. Well, why at home? Meditate now. Meditate every moment of the day. Why don't you meditate while you're walking? Why don't you meditate while you're running? Why don't you meditate while you're working? Why don't you meditate while you're driving? If you meditate while you're driving, what will come to the car? It'll crash. No. Your meditation with the eyes open. Everything you see is He. There's no variety. The highest point says, non-dualism says, there's no variety. What you see in front is God, fragmented as it were. Fragmented through the senses and the mind. Time and space as a framework there, God seems to be fragmented. They're like a kaleidoscope. Or like raindrops, the light is fragmented through raindrops and presents us with a rainbow. All this is rainbow, God's rainbow. With God being absolute, how can we bridge the gap? How can being turn into becoming? No, it doesn't do it, says Vedanta. It seems to do it. This seems to be it. Then how will you explain it? It must be like a sport. And here, Lila, the whole philosophy of Lila, the theory of Lila, Lila Maya, comes into play. Now, it is a sport, and God, so the sport means like a play. So Raynor Johnson, whose book covers this, says how we bridge that gap. He puts this, we can only do it through India's theory of Lila, and then puts this beautiful example. Supposing you attend a Shakespearean play, and Hamlet is there on the stage, because there's no Hamlet, there's an actor playing a part. You play the part of Hamlet, now you ask, how will I become God? Same question. How will Hamlet become Irving, the actor, great Shakespearean actor? It's an impossible question. There were no two. There were no Hamlet and Irving. How will Hamlet become Irving? Hamlet was Irving. Irving played the part of Hamlet. Similarly, if we see that all around, we'll have an attitude which is geared toward a kind of sense of fun. We'll see the whole of life as a sport. Play it delightfully with God. If this whole life is sport, please play well. That's the only thing you have to do. Make sure you play it well. So what is the game? The game is guiding thought. So every time an opportunity comes, and you see, oh I see, this game is not being played very seriously. It's called negative thinking. This game is very serious. It's not a game. Life is serious, my problems are dire. You bring the mind back and say, no, what about God's play? See it as a sport. You put that in. If you don't have an attitude, a sporting attitude, you haven't really grasped the meaning of practical Advaita. Advaita is highly practical. It tells you this is a sport, play it well. If you play it well, you play it fearlessly. because there are no two. That's practical invention. Yeah? So we give it the opportunity. Where will I elevate the mind to? The opportunity of elevating it to the highest thrilling position we can. Elevate it to the highest delight. Not even just halfway. You recall, when was the mind so elevated? Well, when I sat in it for a little meditation. Or I looked at a beautiful scenery. Or I saw somebody doing some compassionate act. My heart was moved. My mind shifted to an elevated place. Well, why don't you elevate that even higher on a regular basis? The more regularity it is, the more habitual it becomes. Until it becomes effortless. The effortless shift is there. So that's the process. Yeah? So now we come on to the whole question of doubt, because we said that faith was necessary to be cultivated. So what's the opposite of faith is doubt. And we find how doubt is not so good for the next two stanzas. Ajnascha satathanascha samsasya atma vinashti yayam loga stipana paro na sukham samsatyatmana. The ignorant man, ajna, ignorant man, devoid of shraddha, the doubting self, goes to destruction. The doubting self has neither this world nor the next, nor happiness. Why? Because everything that you want requires desire, determination, dedication. You can sum that up, requires faith. I have the ability to do it. You want to play a musical instrument, you can start from a doubting point of view. I'm not sure if I have faith. In who? In me, my capacity to do it. Then a teacher comes, music teacher says, oh, do this, you make some mistakes. Then after maybe 1 year, you can play some basic tunes, maybe 3-4 tunes. You can play them well. After 5 years, what happened? Even with your eyes closed, you can play the whole range, from the top to the bottom. Play your game of life from top to bottom, with pure faith. But it does require these steps. So in the beginning, Arjuna was doubtful. Now he's overcoming his doubt. Doubt is a useful thing. But the fact of it is, doubt will produce a doubtful outcome. That's the point. In any field. You assert something and then you take a second take. I doubt it, but I doubt it. Somebody says, through positive thinking, could you win the lotto? Yes, you can do it. Why don't I have it then? I have tremendous faith, I have faith in you and so on, all the rest, but I never won the lotto. Every week I report, Swami, I didn't win the lotto this week. But what is the thought process? The thought process is, I'm thankful to win the lotto. First, second, on the purchase of a ticket. Second, no, I've never won anything in my life before. Third, second, so many people bought lotto tickets. Next one, the odds are impossible. Even with just 3-4 things, you cancel the whole thing out. Then the final test of your doubt, did you check your ticket and find out when did you win? No, I didn't do it yet. I have 6 months to do it, so they say. I see, means you doubted, you don't really believe you can do it. So that's the argument. I had somebody in Zimbabwe desperately required a car. So I said, what kind of car would you like? Now there's a supermarket chain called Bon Marché there, and every year there's a car there. They put it there, you buy groceries and things. They give you tickets. You put them on the stamps. You put them on a stamp card, and you can, when the card is filled, you put it into a general lottery. Somebody draws it out and wins the car. I think it was a Citroen. I said, what car would you like? She said, you know that car there? I said, no, I haven't, but you tell me about it. This is a blue Citroen. That's the perfect car for me. I said, very good. Of course, you're going to have to go and buy the stamps, otherwise it doesn't work. I said, what you should do, you should go and visit that car. You'd ask permission, can you sit in there? Can you smell the upholstery? Can you feel the steering wheel? and then get somebody to photograph you smiling outside it with a friend, mentally taking possession of the car. Do that. Because she had faith in me and what I was saying and so on and so forth, she did it. She won the car. So all these things are possible. Why? Because the human thought is irresistible. Why? Because the thinker is irresistible. The thinker is God. The doubting self has neither this world nor the next world. Even if you want heaven and the next world, if you doubt it, you won't get it. Doubting will get nothing. And you know happiness. So what does this Shraddha consist of? It's faith in yourself, your abilities. Then it's faith in God, faith in your teacher, faith in the principles contained in scripture. When these three things are combined, we have Shraddha, unquestioning. God's sitting behind me, how will I ever fail? God's sitting here, how will anything ever go wrong? How will my ship be steered in a wrong way into stormy seas? It'll never happen. So, you can read that, Krishna there.
Unless one has the faith of a baby, one cannot have access to the Lord. If mother points to somebody and says, "He is your brother," the baby believes it. The grace of the Lord comes to him who has this kind of faith. The calculative and doubtful estrange themselves from the divine.
So this is all taken now in modern life as positive thinking. You have to think of it in a mathematical way. Assert, 1 second. Doubt, 1 second. Equals 0. Doubt being inherently there, we have to say, to make this work, we have to have at least 2. Something like that. Even if doubt becomes 1. So we have to have a +1. Go and make sure there's a +1 somewhere. In reviewing what went on in the mental field, we see, register what happened, all thoughts came up, all doubts came up, all difficulties came up, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe we make God the grand scorekeeper. Lord, how's it going? Unfortunately, with a small framework, say 20 seconds, there were 12 doubts, 12 negatives. All right, that's fine. Please give me 16 positives. Something like that. Give me more positives. Let's put it as, let's keep the framework 20. 4 doubts. Then I'd have to have 16 positive thoughts. Isn't it? Then what's it? It's +12. So 4 minuses. Then we have 16 pluses. It is a 12 plus game over 20 seconds. That's the game. Seriously do that. Then we'll get what we want with positive thinking. There's a book very popular by, who's it by? You can probably tell me because it's well known, bestseller. All these books are bestsellers. Think and Grow Rich. A very old book by Napoleon Hill, who's the author. Think and Grow Rich. My teacher made me read it. Forget about the Gita and so on, made me read this. Because I had an attitude to money which said, I despise money, I hate money, I won't accept money. He said, that's very impractical. Money is also embodiment of Lakshmi. So please study this book, Think and Grow Rich. Made me do that. I don't despise money. Money is a very good resource. But money is, after all, only paper and so on. And the wealth of the world is vast. And much good can be done with it. Wealth is not bad. Attachment to wealth is bad. It's really bad. So don't be attached to it, that's all. The next chapter is chapter 5, and it's all about sannyasa, renunciation. The question comes, should we renounce all action? No. Should we renounce wealth and possession? No. Should we renounce attachment to it? Yes. Now you have it. So, we'll finish this off now. So the faith of a child, doubt is derogatory. The power of faith is there. Such a power can say to a lame man, walk please. Say to a dead person, please wake up, you are only asleep. Says to a blind man, please see. That's called faith. No doubt. Then, and that doubt should be faith of a child. The difference between childish and childlike should be childlike, not childish. Childish is the opposite. Then, yoga sannyasta karmanam. With work absorbed in yoga, doubts rent asunder by knowledge udamje. Actions do not bind him who is poised in the self. Exactly as we were talking about. So you can be above it. There's something in the commentary about a mudfish. You can just briefly read that.
The mudfish remains untarnished by mud, though wallowing in it all the while. The yogi is he who is not tainted by karma, though ever occupied with it. Nature is infallible. There is a divine plan and purpose in its function.
Beautiful, beautiful. Nature is infallible. Nature's laws are infallible. Even a man like Stephen Hawking says, we don't really require a God. Nature's laws explain all. In a certain sense, he's right. Nature itself is none other than God with his graces and glories in front. Creating all the laws, and every time there's a divine design behind everything. The negative thing would be to deny it. The positive thing, doubt it. The positive thing would be to say, all this is a divine design unfolding through you, through all. I can resist it, I can block it, but eventually it will come out. They're called evolution. The yogic form of evolution is like that. It's different from a modern biological evolution that says, starting from a blank, we evolve to something. There's no starting from fullness, we start unfolding. A potentiality starts growing and developing and manifesting. So, doubts rent asunder, work absolved in yoga. These are the two difficulties. That the difficulty about getting caught up in work and not thinking about anything else beyond it. You get caught up 16-hour days, work, no leisure. What do you do? Work. You have a family? Yes. Why are you working? To provide for the family? Nowadays, no. I forgot all about the family. I was too obsessed with the work. I forgot why I was doing it. So that problem being solved here, and then the doubt problem being solved there, what will happen? You will rent asunder all these things by knowledge. You won't be bound anymore. Because, why? You're literally possessing Atma, Vantam, possessing the self. And then last, Tasmad Ajnana Sambhutam, Justam Janaya Sinatmana. Therefore, severing with the sword of knowledge, thus this ignorance-born doubt about the self, dwelling in your heart, be established in yoga. It has to be entrenched in your heart. Be established means develop a habit, unwavering. This establishing yoga, discussed previously, is the prajna. What is the characteristic? Stand up, Bharata, the last word, encouragement. So, iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastri Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvadi Jnana Karma Samnyasa Yogo Nama Chaturto Dhyaya. Thus ends the 4th chapter in the Upanishad Bhagavad Gita, knowledge of Brahman, the Supreme, science of yoga, and dialogue between Sri Krishna Arjuna. This is the 4th chapter, discourse designated this yoga of renunciation, of action in knowledge. So next week, not next week, 2 weeks' time, we can pick up the new theme, Sannyasa Yoga, 5th chapter. This whole question of sannyasa is very important. Most people think sannyasa is this, that's not the meaning in the Bhagavad Gita. Nowhere does it mean it. And yet we have reference to it. The last chapter is about sannyasa. 15th chapter, there's 3-4 places we labor the whole question of sannyasa. So the whole thing in the Gita is sannyasa. In our Krishna's language is tyaga.
Yeah, yeah.
Gita reverse. So that's the whole message. Good. So I don't know if we have time for a few questions. So.
Jnana is really awareness, isn't it? As opposed to knowing something.
In a sense, yes, because, you see, one of the characteristics of Brahman. So, when we understand this tattvam, the supreme param tattvam, we know the truth. Yeah, the tattvam about this, is the floor hard? Yes, that's a tattvam about the floor. What's the tattvam about the highest? That's called knowledge. We don't know it, normally speaking. So that's what we need to cultivate. But knowledge is, in a sense, is not something that we cultivate because we cultivate sattva, we cultivate devotion, all these things that were mentioned, self-control, steering the energy of the mind in a positive direction. All of these things we can do. And what would happen to knowledge without attending to it, it flashes by itself because of the purificatory aspect of it. So knowing more, see, knowledge is also a grading thing. We have to know more. And the more we know, the less we have to say about it. Mm. So for example, in school, when you start off your education, you'll have to know all the ins and outs from A to B. You'll have to learn the entire alphabet. You'll have to learn the basic principles of mathematics. It's all detailed. But then what happens in college, you're left to your own devices. You're given a tutor, and the tutor says yes and gives you a few guidance here and there. Otherwise, you do your own research. You're on your own. It's all internal. So the more knowledge increases, the more it's self-reliant. The more you have to do it yourself. The more internal it is. In any field, that's the case. So knowledge in that sense is transforming, knowing something, some facts. You can read the Gita and say these are facts, just information book. But that's not how it's studied. It's studied by reflecting and meditating on it and putting it into practice. The way we call these a workshop. You just read it alone, it's a study. Now if you say it's a workshop, you say, here's what we learned. Now this coming week, we pick up the principles and see if we can implement something. That makes it now a workshop. So in that same way, we have to transform mere knowledge to wisdom. That's the transition. We have to become more and more wise, wiser and wiser and wiser. Otherwise, you see, just academic knowledge is not what's required. Wisdom is what's required. And wisdom is more subtle and more internal and more self-evident. Ultimately, what that will yield is, we will yield the absolute knowledge, where all ignorance goes away, is a flash. That realization is a flash, just created by a conditioning. The mind is conditioned, it's prepared, it's trained for revelation. We didn't do anything about it. It came by itself. Meditation didn't produce it. Good living didn't produce it. Morals, ethics didn't produce it. None of these things produced it. Religion didn't produce it. Ritualism didn't produce it. What happened? It was always there. We just cleaned the mind a little bit and it came through, shone through. It's always there. We just peel off all the layers of ignorance. Ignorance is not one thing. Ignorance appears to us through time and space in a layered form. Just as the universe appears to us in an evolved way. It didn't start off with a human. It started off not even with protons, neutrons, nothing of that existed. It was just a kind of blackness, if you like, what cosmologists call nothing today, even though we can quibble over the terms. You can't leave it at nothing. So even now scientists say, no, there is a something, a basic material of some kind. So don't use the word nothing, because if you look for nothing, you won't find it. It doesn't exist. That's the difficulty with having a theory about nothing. Have a theory about everything. Then, what became after so many, supposing you take the Big Bang, as you know, I'm not a Big Bang fan, never mind, we take it as true and say, all right, Big Bang happened. Then from there was just energy, crashing, combination, inflation. Two players on the stage at this point, hydrogen and helium, and one principle falling. Without the falling, nothing could happen. The gravity had to be there. And then from that stardust, what happened? From stardust, the supernova, everything else came in terms of our own human evolution. But of the 4.5 billion years of the earth, man is a new arrival. It took all that time to make man. Yeah, man's only been there maybe less than 1 million years now, and 4.5 billion years behind us. There's a small blip on the horizon of the history of the earth. So when we take all that into account, we find it didn't happen in one go. It was a slow evolutionary process. Now our process now is hastened. We now have a position where we can rapidly hasten the evolutionary scheme of things. We don't have to spend a long time, as I would say. If we have desire to fly, we don't have to wait around for biological evolution to give us wings. We just invent an airplane and leave it there. You know, flying is very difficult. It's very hard on the arms. So you have to have an airplane. Isn't it? So in that way we can transcend nature. We have the capacity to transcend nature. Take what is useful for it, control what we can, and obey the laws that we can't control. And in that way we work. And man has the capacity, look how much you can take a small square like that in visible space and find 100,000 galaxies in it. Just that small thing. Then you say, by inference, wherever we look, we take how many squares will we take? And then we add up all the galaxies in mammoth. We have a capacity just through mathematics to make a mass balance and say the weight of the universe is this. So man's small brain doing that. It's just incredible, amazing. But if we leave it just there, man did it, it's not that amazing. Because the amazing thing really is that behind man is what made it do it. As God. Then, the more advanced position is, instead of saying God did it, you say, no, that is my own divine true nature, only that exists. That unity of existence is there, it's satyam, it's jnanam, it's anandam.